Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Virginia Killmore, and welcome to my studio. Today is Collage Wednesday, so today we usually do some kind of fun collage design, and today I'm going to show you how to take a stencil and turn it into two cards, giving you a little bit more bang for your buck. So let's get started. So, can you see the similarity between these two cards? They are actually the opposite of the other card. Each card is exactly the opposite. And what I did was I took a stencil much like this one, which is the one we're going to use today, and placed it on top of cardstock and then used ink to burnish it. Not only did it color this part, but it also created an image behind here. So to do that, today we are going to use cardstock and these laser cut stencils. I'll show you what kind I'm talking about. These are called Dandy Garden laser cut paper, and I love them, but my big issue is you only get one. So I want to make sure that I get extra card for it. So what I'm going to do is take our note cards and envelopes. I'm going to take two of them out. One I'm going to set aside, but one I'm going to start stenciling right on there. I'm going to fold this in half, and I'm going to go ahead and put a tiny bit of tape on the back side, and you need to just look to see what's the front and what's the back. I usually find that the front has a little bit of brown on the edges. For some reason that looks like the front. To me it's slicker. So I'm going to put the tape on here, and I'm just putting infinitesimal amounts of tape. I just want a little bit here and there to sort of hold it in place. We could use my Stamparatus to sort of magnetize it, but the problem with that is that once it gets magnetized, you can't color in that place. And now I'm just centering it on here. And I am folding it over because I'm going to be working with my blender brushes, and I don't want ink on the back side of this. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to bring a piece of cardstock in, or paper, and I'm going to lay it like this, and I'm going to start at the bottom. This is the card we're building right now. Obviously it's a different stencil. We're going to start with the Pretty Peacock, Rococo Rose, and then Terracotta Tile. These are all colors that are retiring, and if you want the re-inkers for them, I would suggest ordering them right away because they will go fast. I'm also using our blender brushes that I love, love, love. They just work so well. And you'll notice I have them color-coded with clips that I have created on my 3D printer. If you're interested in knowing how you can get your own set, all you have to do is order a set of blender brushes from me. And they're free. If you already have your blender brushes and are interested, I also sell them at my Etsy shop. Now, you'll notice I started way out here. I always like to start out here, and I do hold the stencil while I work because I don't want it moving too much. If you find that the stencil's starting to move while you're working, you might need to adjust what direction you're doing your circular movement in, because sometimes the stencil needs, like for instance, this has lots of little space. This has some wide open spaces, and the leaves tend to move a little bit, so you want to be very careful not to move them too much. And I'm working and burnishing mostly at the bottom, the darkest. See, this is starting to move a little bit, so I am going to work that a little bit. And I'm noticing that this stencil has a little piece of something in here, so I'm going to try to get that up. It's the tape. I didn't do a good job taping it. I'm glad I noticed that. I actually have a tool for that. take my little eraser and lift that off. There, I got it. I'm glad I noticed it because I can see it's not colored in there. But I'm working my color going up, and usually I do like to do a circle because it's just the softest pattern. But I'm noticing with this like dandelion weed, I think that's what it is, or Queen Anne's lace, you have to be a little bit careful. And I want it very thin towards the top because I'm going to add the next color in. I like to make the colors sort of cross over into one another so they look like they blend seamlessly. And remember, I'm coloring my stencil at the same time I'm coloring my paper, and it doesn't have to be straight across. I'm sort of creating an upsweep on either side. Okay, I think I'm happy with that color, so I'm going to go next to Rococo Rose, because if you look at a sunrise, it usually goes to a purpley pink before it goes to the next color. So now I switch out my brush that is has a purple clip on it. Makes it really easy to remember, though I still sometimes stick it in the wrong one. And now I'm doing the same thing I talked about, trying not to move the stencil very much. Sometimes I have to help it by holding it in place. Especially this stencil seems to need a little bit more attention. You get the best coloring when you do it in a circular fashion, but some of these little sweeped pieces move, and that can cause all kinds of issues. Maybe it'll look like it's blurred, like it would be in the wind. Now I'm going back into the blue a little bit to sort of color in those spaces as well, because I want to mix my blue and my Rococo Rose together before I get into my Terracotta Tile. So sad. These are almost my three favorite colors. I also love Seaside Spray. I think that's just a beautiful color. So you see how I'm sort of just building. The nice thing is when I'm done, I'm going to have this card all done, and I'm going to use my stencil on my other card, and I'll have two cards out of doing all this extra work. It's actually not that much extra work, but you see how I'm sort of brushing up because I'm noticing it is sort of blending or moving my little stencils a little bit, so I don't want them to move too much. And I'm almost done with the Rococo Rose. I just want to get some on the edge over here. Okay, I think I'm good with that. And now let's go into our Terracotta Tile. And I bring out my last brush. Now I could do this all in one color. I don't have to do all these different colors, but I just thought that would be really pretty and fun. Same thing with the top here. I'm noticing that if I try to go in a circle too much, I move everything. I think the dragonfly one was a little bit more stable as it's connected in spots. I am getting a little bit of pounced color, but it doesn't bother me in this pattern so much because I think it's just kind of another interesting element. It's creating a geometric kind of shape within the shading. The only thing is I want to make sure to really get my edges nicely. See how that just got moved? I'm going to just push it back in place and keep coloring and working my way. Maybe it'll really be neat and I'll be happy that it moved. sort of gives it a windblown look. Only an artist can see those things, I think, sometimes. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So now comes the magic part. So I'm going to close this up, and I'm going to take the paper out, and I'm going to gently remove the stencil. And by that I mean super gently, because we don't want that glue to stay on there permanently. And if it does, we can lift it off with that eraser that I showed you. There. But see how I got that effect? Now look at how interesting. This one right here is much darker, and it's because it moved a lot, so it got a little color underneath. So it actually gives more depth to the whole process. But it's so interesting how this works. Just getting the last of the glue off of there. So my first card is done. So this card is done. I just have to put the sentiment on it. So now let's do the other card. So now we're going to take a piece of pretty peacock paper, and we're going to take our stencil and we're just going to glue it on there. Look at how beautiful that is. And I'm just going to put dabs of glue on some of these leaves and a little bit on the corners. I'm not going to worry too much because it's not going to move that much once I get it glued down. I think that's enough glue. Okay. I'm just going to use my bone folder, which I've moved right there, sort of push the glue down. And now I just glue it to these card pieces that I have. There's the one that I folded. I'm going to glue that right directly. Oh no, that's an envelope. I'm going to show you something fun to do with that in a second. So I just need one of these card fronts. I'm going to glue this right down on there. These note cards are great. You get 20 in a kit, so you can make lots of cards, and it has the envelopes right with it. You don't have to buy those separately. Isn't that pretty? So now we have both cards made out of one stencil, so we're just making that stencil go a little bit further. To do the sentiment, what I did was I stamped using Art Gallery. I love this set, and it's such an easy way to make a card. I'm going to make a happy birthday one. That's usually what I end up doing. I think I'm going to use the Terracotta Tile, even though I'm using the blue background. And I am going to stamp it if I could only find my stamp. Oh, here it is. And I'm going to stamp it on a scrap piece of paper twice, because I need one for each card. And then I'm going to use my classic label punch to punch it out. I like to stamp and then punch because I can use the window of what we're cutting out to straighten up my sentiment, but also to center it. So if I don't stamp straight, I don't have to worry about it because I will always have a scrap piece. Now I'm only making the circle on one of them. So I'm going to take my 1 1/4 inch punch, which is retired. I think I actually used the 1 1/2 inch punch on the other card, but that's okay. See how I'm going to stamp that like that? Put that on there. I am going to use some of my dimensionals, and I'm using the ones at the bottom because this is kind of skinny. I just realized I didn't plan for the circle enough, so I'm going to move this over just a tad. There. That's nicely lined up, and then I can put a couple on the back. So I'm double lifting it up. I kind of like it here. I just sometimes do not like to follow the same thing I did the last time, so bear with me. And now I'm just using a little strip that I have left over from when I cut cardstock. I think I'm going to use the skinnier one. And I'm going to lay it right like this. Yep. Actually, I think it's a little big. You know what? I think I'm going to try the circle again. It just feels like it covers up too much. Yeah, that's much better. So the same process. On the other card, I actually used a rather skinny strip, so maybe that would have made me happier if I had made that a little thinner. But I'm happy with my decision. So I'm going to start out by putting this on my card. I'm going to do it the opposite of what I just did. I'm teaching words to my grandbaby, so I'm always thinking about how I can use them in my vocabulary. So bear with me here. And again, I'm using just the little tiny pieces here at the bottom. Sometimes I actually cut my dimensionals in half, but now that we sell the minis, I usually don't need to. Same thing here, that really focuses your eye on the happy birthday. And now we have our cards. And I'm going to show you one more little thing that's super cute. Don't you think we need our envelopes decorated? So I am going to take one of these little dragonflies, and I'm going to have to hold it because I'm not going to glue this one down. But I'm just going to put a little bit of this pretty Peacock ink. I think I should have glued this down. I better really hold it. So I'm going to do one side first. Now I'm going to do the base. Now I'm going to flip it over. And I probably need more ink. I'm just afraid to move it. Already moving it. So we got to line it up real carefully again. But what's nice is I'll have a nice stenciled dragonfly when I'm done, plus, not stenciled, colored dragonfly. I will have colored this actual dragonfly as well. Oh, it looks like he's flying away. Just got to get some color in there in some spots. Okay, so there's my little corner dragonfly, and I could, if I wanted to, add that to my card, which I think is really super pretty. So there you go, lots of great ideas with this concept. I hope you've enjoyed. I'm going to go ahead and glue him in because I do really like him in there, so I better put some glue down. I should have done the other cards first. I know I'll regret this, but I want you to see how nice that looks. Okay, so 2 cards out of 1 stencil. Super fun. I hope you've enjoyed today's presentation, and you will touch base with me tomorrow so that you can see my other cards that I'm doing. So thanks for watching. Please like and share if you've enjoyed. I'll see you tomorrow at 1.